At your table, we had a limited number of copies that we put out that you could take with you or leave, but the first is we're calling our annual report, and 2017 is a bit of a misnomer. It's talking about things we did accomplish in 2017, but it's also talking about some current events as well, but we thought it'd be a good opportunity for you to understand some of the things we're working on. And then right here, we're laying out a brochure on planned giving as well. Take a look at this, but it's not only thinking about how you can donate to the foundation currently, but also we're looking at issues of estate planning and things of that sort for the future, trying to figure out how we can begin to do more things on behalf of floodplain management. All right, so where am I pointing? Over here? Okay, all right, so the foundation itself, who we are is we are trustees, associates, fellows, the executive office, and most important donors. If I can advance the slide, please. And so what I'd like to talk about here is in terms of the financial contributions, we have many folks here who are contributing as in terms of work and service to the foundation itself. So myself, I'm the president. Dale Lehman is our vice president. Larry Larson, if you can please stand as I say your name. Larry Larson is our secretary. Jerry Sparks is Larry Larson's our treasurer. Jerry Sparks is our secretary. The folks who are running our committees include Molly O'Toole on scholarships and Matt Koch on events, Brad Anderson on projects, Joanne Howard on fellows, Jeff Sparrow and Joe Bruno on fundraising, and new to our board of executive trustees, and Tara Nova, who will be taking over outreach. So just a quick round of applause for this group of folks doing a lot of heavy lifting. But also additional trustees who are there making sure that we're moving things forward properly. We have Mark O'Born, Vince DiCamille, Mark Forrest, Tim Hillier, Elise Eibendal, Don McAvoy, Gopal Raja, Bo Temple, Sam Medlock, and new to the Board of Trustees from SmartVent is Mike Graham. And then if you really want to get down to where the real work is, it's the associates who keep us all honest. And so that would include Bruce Bender, Dave Fowler, Janice Roper-Graham, Jessica Ludi, Deborah Mills, Elisa Savagio, Terry Turner, Veronica Villalobos-Pogue, Joanna Wagshaw, Mike Robinson, who is a new associate, and Jeremias Alvarez, who is also a new associate. Jeremias was our sponsor from PricewaterhouseCoopers, so we're pleased to have Price Waterhouse represented on the foundation as well. And then in terms of our executive office, we have Diane Brown, Suzanne Gillingham, Gina Trabotsky, or Gigi Trabotsky, excuse me, Gigi. And then a new position we created this year, George Riedel, who's our donor coordinator. George, can you stand up for a second? So if you see him coming in the red shirt, just take out your wallet and just submit to what he's going to ask you to do. But George is doing a great job in terms of helping to organize our fundraising activities. All right, I'm almost through with the introductions here. But I would be remiss in not mentioning our fellows. Now, our fellows is something we started 2 years ago. These are individuals who are at the end of their career or who have retired from floodplain management but want to stay engaged. And frankly, many of these folks were our active leaders in the group. And so those individuals include Wally Wilson, Scott Edelman, Mike Moy, Larry Ollinger, Mike Pavlidis, Grant Smith, Jerry Galloway, and if we can get the drum roll, please, everyone at the table. Our new fellows would be Matt Miller. Matt, if you can please stand. Round of applause for Matt. Matt was a long-term trustee and is moving into the fellows row. And Diane Brown, who is also one of our newest fellows. Diane. All right, so enough of the introductions. So what is it that you fund? Really, if you take a look at the foundation, what we are funding would include projects, policy and technical dialogue, education, and scholarships. On the reports that are there, you can see some examples of the work that we're doing. And what I want to talk about just briefly are some of the more important things that we're focusing on in the upcoming year. Okay. There we go. So from the events side, we do handle a number of significant events, really trying to advance policy within the nation. And the next event we're going to be hosting is going to be in cooperation with the California FMA. California is a state chapter of the association. Who do we have in the room from California? Show of hands from any California members. So we'll be working with the folks from California on our next topic, which is big data. We'll be doing this with them on September 5th on a plenary session in their Reno meeting. And you're going to be saying, so what are we looking at with the topic big data? I think this gives you a little flavor of what we're looking at from within the foundation. If you've been looking at the press, if you've been reading the news, you're starting to see things like machine learning, artificial intelligence, big data. And what's happening is we're starting to see that there is equally big results, big press releases, and when you start to look at what they're talking about, there's big questions. And those questions really come down to is what is the validity of the data, and are they properly aligned with the assumptions that are there? Now, I'm a proponent of big data. I believe that we have a long journey before us where this will become a way of how we do business. But what are the boundary conditions we should be placing on big data? So let me give you an example of what are some of the concerns and some of the questions on big data. Excuse me. So you're reading the news, you pick up the newspaper, the New York Times reports, who would have thought Arizona is one of the most flood-prone states in the nation? And so the question comes down to, yeah, who would have thought that Arizona is one of the most flood-prone states in the nation? As you walked around here, I'm sure that you were overwhelmed by the crashing coastal waves, and you were overwhelmed by the mighty rivers that were coming through downtown Phoenix. Well, basically what happens, if you look at where that study came from, there was misinterpretation of how Maricopa County Flood Control mapped its 500-year floodplains using an alternative definition. But yet, people not understanding the data came up and they're coming up with conclusions that don't make sense. Fast forward to the next study. I think it was, 40 million people are at flood risk within the United States. Came out of another big data study. You go into the study results itself, and there's not a single shred of mitigation data in their assumptions. If you talk to the insurance industries, they will admit that they're looking at big data for running risk assessment, but again, there's not a shred of mitigation in what they're looking at. Can we fix that with time? Perhaps we can. But the question we're asking with the big data topic is, what are the boundary conditions while we get there in terms of how we interpret and we use big data? So again, that's going to be a very important event. Our keynote speaker for that is going to be Dan Cotter, who is the head of Homeland Security's IT group. We're going to have Ed Clark, who is in charge of NOAA's National Water Model, and we'll have David Ford, who is a renowned hydrologist in California, and Sam Medlock, representing the insurance from Willis Tower Watson, helping us to talk about that for an hour and a half. It's the start of a conversation, not the finish. The other event we're going to be looking at coming next year is our Gilbert F. White Forum. For those new to the foundation, this is an event we do every 2 to 3 years, and we really try to tackle a very significant breaking policy question. And the question we're going to face next spring is going to be urban flooding. Matt Koch, Sherry Sparks, and his team are really trying to focus and trying to draw us into what we're looking at there. But the topic of urban flooding is going to be very significant. And the thing that we're looking at is the National Academy of Sciences is releasing a report this summer on urban flooding. So we're very interested to see what those results are. But now let's fast forward. If you think about the United States and you think about where our urban areas are, they tend to line the coast. They tend to be areas that are experiencing some relatively extreme rainfall. So this issue of urban flooding is not only about what we do, how we fund it, which are critical questions, but the bigger question the foundation wants to take on is, do our policies today, are they relevant for what is going to be an onslaught of flooding in urban areas? And so our hope is through that conversation we can begin to frame and shape that policy dialogue. I mentioned earlier our new fundraising committee, our new donor coordinator, George Radel. We did that for a number of operational reasons to bring George on to be able to help out. with the intent of improving what we are doing in terms of donations and collections. But also the other thing we're looking at is asking questions. And George has already started to talk to many of the chapters and many of the individuals. And the questions we're asking is, are we providing value? Is our mission known? What can we do to increase your participation? What we're discovering is that in many chapters, for example, we are indistinguishable from the main ASFPM, and there's a lot of confusion about who we are compared to the ASFPM. So we need to work on that messaging and move forward. But the main thing is we want to listen to make sure we shape a program that represents the views of this room and the views of our donors. Okay, so again, become a donor, make a difference. If nothing else, if you can volunteer some time to help with our events. If you can swing by and make a pledge on something, a donation, or if you want to get one of these attractive buttons, it's called the 35 for 35 for Lady Di. For those who are not familiar with Diane Brown, Diane will be retiring after 35 years with the organization. And so we are trying to have a little fundraiser competition on her behalf. So get one of those buttons. If you see somebody walking around with one of these tags on their placard, thank them, but then go to the booth and figure out how you can get one yourself. If you want to come be part of our live auction for a $125 donation, you can go to our donors reception, be part of our live auction on Wednesday evening. And again, also we have, where's Suzanne? There. Suzanne, stand up. Suzanne is the person you're looking for in the exhibit hall. And again, I can't emphasize the fact, we hate to be up here just always saying we need money, but folks, we need money because we've got such a big program of work in front of us. So again, thank you for your time. And if we can cue up the next presentation.